a market standpoint to be able to understand what they're trying to do. So important that, like I said, as interest rates are kind of going fluctuating up and down on the daily, just make sure that your client understands where they're positioned and that when the right time to lock in is. So from an on the streets, a lot of questions. The biggest misconception that I think I've seen over the last month has to do with employment. Can I change jobs? Can I change careers? Can I go part-time to full-time? I've had 2 jobs. All these questions are coming up because there's a lot of movement in the market from an employment standpoint, and people have these questions. There's plenty of misconceptions out there, and the reason for that is the rules have changed in recent years about how Fannie and Freddie really feel about people changing jobs. It used to be that if you went from the same type of job to the next type of job or the same line of work to the next line of work, we didn't have any worries, and we still don't have any worries. But now you actually can do a complete clear career change and we still may not have issues. So for example, if you are working 40 hours a week at Costco, and then you decide, okay, well, I've applied and I got this job, this construction job where I'm gonna be able to work 40 hours a week plus overtime, and it's gonna be more beneficial for me and my family. We can still approve you based on the new job and the new 40 hours. Now, can we use your overtime? Not necessarily. However, we are able to give you credit for going from any full-time position to any full-time position and give you credit for any increase in income. That's FHA, that's VA, that's conventional, that's jumbo. Any financing will allow us to give you credit from full-time to full-time work. So keep that in mind, any credit for increases. So as people are saying, oh my gosh, I got to wait to apply for a mortgage, or I have to wait for my pre-approval, or I have to be in my job for 6 months, those things are not necessarily true. It's all based on, are you going from full-time to full-time, and what does that look like overall? Now, when we get into part-time work or what we call variable hours, so variable hours means, like a nurse is a good example of variable hours. Sometimes they'll work 32 hours. Sometimes they're considered full-time at 36 hours. Sometimes they get overnight pay. Sometimes they get shift differentials, things of that nature. Those are called variable pay situations. Those are calculated a little bit differently on our side. However, we still give variable pay credit on the most favorable of condition. What I mean by that is, let's say you had a client who was working consistently on average 32 hours, but sometimes their paycheck shows 40 and sometimes it shows 20, sometimes it shows in the middle, things of that nature. We are able to calculate on an average and give them credit for that average, even if, let's just say, their last 2 pay stubs haven't even shown the average. So you got to keep in mind that when we're talking about employment and we're talking about income and all these calculations, that we have a I would say, very specific set of rules that we follow when it comes to calculating income and when it comes to employment. So the other thing that I get asked a lot about is if somebody has 2 jobs. So number one, you can't just be working full time and say, well, in order to qualify for a larger mortgage, I'm going to go out and get another part-time job as well. So I'm going to be working 2 jobs. Doesn't work that way. So in order to get credit for both jobs that you're working, you have to be able to say that you've been working 2 jobs for 2 years consistently. Now, you can change part-time jobs, you can change full-time jobs, but the 2 jobs for 2 years has to be consistent in order to get credit for that. Okay. So a lot of people have questions about, can I change my job? Is it going to disrupt my pre-approval? The short answer is not necessarily. And to speak to your lender and make sure that you have a good understanding of what you want to do and what you don't want to do. The other thing to watch out for is, if you are looking to buy a house, do not change jobs in the middle of a loan process without letting us know. And number 2, do not go from a full-time permanent position to a temp position or contract position at any time before you purchase that home. Contract positions and temp positions require a 2-year minimum history in order for us to be even able to use the income. So keep those things in mind. Your clients, obviously, if they have questions, they can talk to me, but that should not prevent them from coming and trying to get a pre-approval so that we can look at their entire employment history and their income situation. There's times where we can use 12 months of employment history. There's times where we can use only 12 months of overtime, things of that nature that we can use within the guidelines and the rules that will help them qualify for the mortgage that they want. So I guess the general message is, if your client has questions or if they're worried from an employment standpoint on whether or not they can be approved, have them talk to us. They don't even have to fill out an application. We can look at their work history and give them some good advice on qualifying from that standpoint.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, a lot of that's newer, and I guess I haven't like mentally revisited the job and what's required or not required. So I'm very glad that you brought that up today for sure.
Absolutely.
And I apologize. The recording, I don't know what happened. So I didn't hit it until about on the streets part of it. Can you just highlight again the delinquency rate that's up since the highest in 13, 14 years, and just go circle back around real quick on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're getting the retail sales numbers this week, which basically tells us how much people are spending or what kind of spending that they're doing with their income that they have after their bills. And so basically last month when that number came out, it was 0.3 lower than it was in prior month, which caused a bond rally, i.e. lowering of interest rates by almost 0.5%. This month, they're supposed to come out tomorrow, and we are expecting a similar result that is going to help kind of drive those interest rates down a little bit. The other thing is not only is it talk about discretionary spending, but also the number of delinquencies has been up 13% over last month. That delinquencies, of course, refers to short-term consumer debt, credit cards and car loans, and that are 90 plus days delinquent, that haven't been paid in 90 plus days. That's up 13% overall. That's a huge, largest increase we've seen in 13 or 14 years. So a lot of people are not excited about their discretionary income. A lot of them are having issues paying bills, which cumulatively is going to put pressure on the Fed to start lowering those interest rates, to start driving more money and income, discretionary income into the economy.
Yeah. Well, I think all this is to say that things are still kind of fluid and we're figuring out things as we go. And like the job career change, is that recent? Like all the new stipulations in response to where we're at now, or is it? Okay.
So that's a good question. So a lot of that is recent, as of 2 to 3 years ago with the full-time to full-time. Not, that has been not a huge deal. The variable income piece, or the income piece for your working varied hours, or what determines varied hours, that changed with FHA about 6 months ago. So that is extremely recent when that changed, and it did change a lot of our clients' pre-approvals that were FHA pre-approved, and we had to make some adjustments for new pre-approval. It helped some, it hindered others, but we worked through those things and put people on the right path to make sure that they have a solidness in their pre-approval.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I wasn't aware, and I'm sure many agents, if you haven't actually talked with you or had the situation come up, may or may not have been aware. So thank you so much for that. Any questions?
I have a quick one on that. So for truck drivers that, that's their business, how does that affect them? Or like people that does Uber,
things like that. Yeah. So that's actually a really, really, really good question. Truck drivers are an actual, almost like separate category that we deal with from an underwriting standpoint. This is because some truck drivers are paid on a salary, some are paid by mileage, some is a combination of both, some are paid hourly. So it really depends on how they get paid. If we have a truck driver who has changed companies, that also comes with a change in the way that they are paid. Depending on what that change is, we may or may not be able to use the income from their job change. They are, like I said, they're a very kind of a separate category on their own, and depending on how they're paid and how what predictions we can make on consistency is really going to determine what we can use to qualify for them. Uber drivers and Lyft drivers, that type of thing, they're a little bit different because they're considered self-employed. So if they're considered self-employed, we need 2 years of self-employment history in order to use that income to qualify. And it has to, when I say 2 years, I don't just mean, hey, I filed my 2022 taxes, I worked all of 2023 and filed an extension for my taxes, but I've been in it for 2 years. I mean 2 years of filed tax returns. That's for any self-employed person, 2 years minimum of filed tax returns, unless they've been in business for 5 or more years. If they've been in business for 5 or more years, we can use 1 year of filed tax returns for income. So that's important to keep in mind as well.
Okay. And how about if they own the truck? and
That's a
do-
self-employed business then. If they are the owner of the truck and they bring in their expenses and do all of their own bookkeeping and all their own profit and loss and all their own schedules and all that stuff, then that's considered self-employed.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? I know we have a few off camera. Carrie, live stream anything? Nope. Okay. Perfect. No other questions. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Nikki, as usual. Great information, and I always am learning from you. And so I guess what I want to bring today, and Carrie, jump in as well if you want to say anything as far as mindset or just shifting perspective. But think about those clients. So this is the opportunity, since things are changing, or even as soon as 6 months ago, or knowing what's going to happen potentially tomorrow, piggybacked on what happened last month with interest rates. Like, who should you be re-engaging with? Who should you be reaching out to and just sparking that conversation, not knowing necessarily where it's going to go, but you have information to give them and to show up and educate. So think about those that were maybe, as Nikki, you said, kind of waiting in the wings, or kind of, is now the time, is it not, especially with the job. So Aminata, I love your question, because who else can you think of that might have been in question, or this may benefit? So it's not just taking this information, definitely take it and know it, but apply it to your business. Or, as I always say, who can you reach out to as far as social media goes, or posts, or if you have a newsletter or email list. It's really important to keep all of your sphere of influence, your prospects, your past clients informed. And that's the big reason that we do this call, is to not only keep you informed, but so you can pay it forward to the other people that need to know. Yeah.
And right after this, I'll be doing my TikTok on the employment stuff that we just talked about. So if you go to, find me on TikTok or Instagram, mortgages from MN to AZ, that'll be posted out there, and you guys can do the stitch or, share it and use that as part of your content as well.
Great idea. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, you guys, is that all this stuff you need to be sharing the news. So either your clients, your sphere, your social media following, your friends, your past clients, they either hear what they hear from media, or they hear what they hear from you. So you need to be the local expert of choice, and you need to be spreading the word. And you can only do that if you educate yourself and then go out there and pass it on.
Love it. Well, wonderful.
Awesome.
Well, we're right at the 20-minute mark. So if there are no other questions, I will keep to 20 minutes today. Carrie, do you want to talk about what's coming in July?
Yeah, so I think that in July, and more to come on this, we're just going to bump this call slightly earlier. And that's just to accommodate East Coast. So I'm just getting my final survey of all the people that have said that they want to be on this call, and just making sure we can find a time that will work for everybody. So just stay tuned here after the next Monday, and we'll update you and announce that. But it will, if anything, it'll be a half an hour to an hour earlier than it is now, just to try to get you earlier in the day if possible, in all time zones. So
Perfect.
Other than that, we're planning to be here every single Monday, getting you guys off, starting your week off right.
Wonderful. Absolutely. We'll be here. And of course, if you need anything in the meantime throughout the week, myself, Carrie, Nikki are always available and here and happy to help.
Yes. And I think what we'll do too, ladies, is we'll, as we start getting more people, we can have people chat in the chat box what they're working on this week, something for accountability. Let's create a space for accountability. And then, we'll do our stuff within 20 minutes. If people want to stay for an extra few minutes, ask questions, or mastermind around something that's helping them, so that people can kind of take that away as well. I think that would be great. So we're just going to change it a little bit, but make it still a very short and sweet call, because that is, more likely that people will come on every week if it is. So that's the plan. All right, ladies, thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.